Yes, thank you very much for your introduction. I'm actually very much pleased to be here, surrounded by this community of experts and performers. I'm actually neither node. I'm just a musicologist whose current research project has, unfortunately or fortunately, something to do with the wind brass music of the 19th century. I would therefore like to encourage you to provide me with your valuable feedback, with the feedback of any kind. It will be very much appreciated and it will help me enormously to improve my research project. Well, what is my research project about? I am actually focusing on fragments, on different types of fragments. First of all, on fragments in terms of musical compositions never completed by their authors. So to speak, forever incomplete works. Like this one? Yeah. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's Zaide that I inserted into the title of my paper today. Strictly speaking, Mozart never composed such a work. There is only a collection of 15 vocal numbers loosely connected to each other, arias, ensembles, and a choir. And this collection was discovered among his papers after his death in 1799. And if you take a look at this, it doesn't work, okay. At this, really? Okay. This single page, you can find a number of gaps and missing voices, clear sign of the incomplete state of this composition. Yeah, all the vocal numbers set to music a German text by an unknown poet. However, the spoken dialogues that have to combine these vocal numbers together are missing. So we have no ideas of the beginning or of the end of this composition, of the whole drama, actually, and the title is missing as well. The title Zaide that you can find on this single page is not by Mozart. Yeah, that's the fragment number one, relevant for my research project. There is another type of fragments, what I am interested in. Remains of a whole that did exist once, but was then destroyed. Like the so-called Kaffeehaus und Restauration zum neuen Hause. It was in 19th century building in the Residenzstadt Hanover, and the building was demolished in 1970 in favor of the new building of the Hochschule für Musik Hanover. And you can see on this page the Hochschule, the music academy, in the background, and in the foreground is the remain of this building from the 19th century. And from 1837 to 1866, the Garden zum Neuen Haus in Hanover hosted a series of significant events called Gartenkonzerte von Militärkapellen, a garden concert of the military band. Among extant descriptions of these events, one published in 1845 in the Wiener Allgemeine Musikzeitschrift is of special importance. The correspondent August Schmidt, who was actually the main editor of this newspaper, visited one of these events, one of these concerts, and described it as an enjoyable one. Also stated that he got to know cozy Hanover in this concert, and actually had a very, very pleasant evening, and so on. But also, he mentioned a certain, I quote, music director Gerold, one of the most excellent composers of military music, whose sphere of activity rarely exceeds the border of the country. Gerold seems to have fully understood his task. He knows the peculiarities of the instruments very well and knows their effects. End of quote. There, Julius Victor Gerold, who was a very prominent composer and an outstanding Klappenhorn, well, I suppose a keyed bugle player, so prominent that I wasn't able to find his his picture, but yeah, there are other reasons for this situation. Yeah. Gerold was responsible for the garden concert of the military band from 1846 to 1866. He selected the compositions, the repertoire, led the rehearsals and conducted the concerts. And actually he was one and only person who once brought together the two types of the fragments I am interested in. In 1846, excerpts from Mozart's unfinished opera fragment were performed in the garden in Hanover. In the late demolished Neue House. But actually, if it was a fragment, an opera fragment, what could Gerold perform? In 1838, the German publisher André brought out a series of editions, all with the title Zaide, among the others a vocal score of this composition, and all the editions were advertised as an unknown opera by Mozart. But in fact, they represented nothing but modern completion by the Mozart opera fragment, a completion made by the leader of the publisher house, Johann Anton André himself. He was also a composer. He added his own overture, a final scene, and a series of spoken dialogues that merged together all the vocal numbers, and actually provided his own edition with the title Zaide. Zaide is the name of one of the opera characters. And voila, a completely unknown Singspiel by Mozart in 2 acts was created. And from this newly born Zaide, in the form of a vocal score, Gerold extracted 2 numbers to be performed in his garden concert by the military band. Which numbers we have? What numbers we have? It's the slaves' chorus, Brüder, lasst uns lustig sein, brothers, let us be merry, and an aria, Der stolze Löw, the proud lion. And then he scored them for the following brass ensemble. I apologize for the quality of this photograph. It was taken by myself during my stay in the archive of the Leibniz Library in Hanover, and I couldn't get a new one, a better one. Let's take a look what instrument he'd like to have for his arrangement of these numbers by Mozart André. The most of the instruments are used in pairs. First of all, the Klappenhorns, keyed biggles, 2 of them. Then the Wolf trumpets, Ventiltrompeten, 2 of them. Then the French horns. Then 2 alt horns, also 2 tenor horns. Then 3 tenor basses, also bassi, whatever it means. And at the very end of the score, we can find 4 ventil horns. And again, the complete score. To briefly outline his approach, I will just discuss his scoring of the orchestral introduction to the aria that originally had to be performed by a tyrannic character, a sultan, and it was written for the voice tenor. Here we are, the orchestral introduction in the form of transcribed for the piano. And I will just play it for you to give you an impression. Just again for the quality of this recording. It's actually not a recording, it's a machine playing. But I guess my own performance would not be much better than this. Here's my transcription of the transcription. And what we have here is 3 thematically contrasted sections. The opening fanfare, just 2 bars, then the main subject, 8 following bars, and a sort of a transition to the next session, a preparation of the next session, and then a conclusion of the last bars of this introduction that refer to the first one. And let's just take a look at how Gerold scored them in his rescoring. The first section is very simple one. Of course, it's scored for the tutti, although there is some space for soli. Here they are, the first keyed biggle and the trumpets have the brief soli here. Then in the second session, we've got some instruments muted because of the piano in the original score, and the main theme is given to the keyed biggle again, now reinforced by the alt horns. In the next third section, we can observe the similar strategy. Again, the keyed biggle play the main role now with the participation of the tenor basses that reinforced the melodic line. And what I'd like to note here is this line, the offbeat syncopation of horns, missing in both Mozart and Andrea versions, that reinforce the bass line like rhythmical reinforcement. At the very end we've got the tutti again because of the dynamic prescribed in the Andrea's version. To sum up the strategy by Gerold, he obviously tended to use the Klappenhornen, keyed biggles, to play the melodic line, reinforced by some other instruments, alt horns, for instance, and I tried to make it visible by using these two layers of color. Yeah, and I will not go any further in my very preliminary analysis of this arrangement. I would like to involve you in my presentation by raising the question. What would you like be the instrument that have to play the following solo here? We have the tenor singing here, and yeah, which instrument would Gerold choose to play this solo? What do you think? Your idea. I will play it for you, actually, in the original form as Mozart wrote it. Wir stolzen, nämlich sich zwar zählen, wenn ihr von Schmeichler Fesseln an, wenn ihr von Schmeichler Fesseln an. I also would tend to it, but it's not the case. It was a great surprise for me because he used the second tenor bass as a solo instrument in this case. And I would also note that Gerold changed the key in this arrangement. Originally, it's written in D major, and in Gerold's version, it's in B flat major. It's lower. Yeah, sure. And I would like just give you a small but a significant detail. In 1819s, while recompleting Mozart's fragmentary opera Zaide that had already established itself as Mozart's Zaide, Robert Hirschfeld, who was the Austrian musician and musicologist, actually rewrote the whole role of the Sultan, the whole tenor role, also this aria, for another voice, a baritone or a bass. He said it lower. And his reasons for the changing of the voice was, I quote, "It was in the character of the opera production at the time of Zaide that powerful figures such as the tyrants were entrusted to a tenor. We cannot accept it today." End of quote. And we actually can observe that the complete role of the Sultan is like rescored for another voice type. It's a performance material of this production, newly written production in Vienna at the end of the 19th century. Is it actually possible to draw some parallels between Hirschfeld's and Gerold's rescoring, and to speak of a certain 19th century tradition of approaching towards these characters, opera characters like tyrants, sultans or so? Or is just a simple coincidence resulted from Gerold's own sound concepts, sound ideas, or something else? Actually, I don't have an answer to this question. Do you? Please let me know. I would like to thank you for being here, for attending my presentation, and I'm looking forward to your ideas, your suggestions, and your questions. Thank you very much.